All right, your next essay, your next DBQ is about Jacksonian democracy and whether or not the Jacksonian Democrats were the guardians of the United States Constitution, political democracy, individual liberty, and equality. So right there, they probably gave you two of your main points. What do you think two of your main points are going to be?
Equality of economic, politics and economy.
Democracy.
So you've got politics, and then you got economy. The economy will be one, and then because it provides the equality of opportunity, but the other one will be the guardian of the United States Constitution. And really what this essay is asking you to do is assess. But they don't want your opinion. They don't want first person. What they want you to do is talk about some of the things that Jackson has done and then compare it to like, I mean not compare it, but look at like long-term what actually happened from it. I mean, we haven't talked about the economy yet in the bank, and we haven't talked about the Trail of Tears, but one of the things we have talked about is like the idea of patronage and getting more people involved in voting and trying to get participation increased. With Jackson, what were the two key terms that went with political participation for people when he came into office? He kind of created this.
To the victor goes the spoil things.
Spoil system, and the other part of that is rotation of office holders. So you've got rotation of office holders, and you've got the spoil system. So when you talk about like political democracy and getting more people involved, those two ideas have to be in there, because he's going to try to increase who gets involved in government. What's a downside to that, though?
Not smart people get picked for government. They can't perform the job well.
So, some people might not be qualified. Other people might have been good at their job and got replaced by those who weren't able to handle the task. So you have to look at the long-term consequences. One of the long-term consequences, and you don't know this yet, is James Garfield gets shot by a guy named Charles Guiteau because Guiteau wanted a political office. And so they haven't, I mean, the consequence of that is like in the 1870s, actually 1880s, they passed the Pendleton Civil Service Act, which you have to take a test to hold a government job because of what Jackson creates with the spoil system and trying to find his friends' jobs. So we're going to go through and look through the documents and try to find the important points. Okay, George Henry Evans, the Working Man's Declaration of Independence. What you need to consider is when you're looking at the document, look at the point of view. I mean, they don't include much information about him. Look at the date. The date would have been 1 year after the election of Jackson to the presidency. And so the Working Man's Declaration of Independence. And one of the things we're going to try to do, we're going to try to figure out which main point it goes with, and we're going to try to figure out what quote from there will help support your point, and maybe what outside information goes with it. Okay, so what topic or kind of main point do you think you can put document A with?
Individual liberty.
Yeah.
It does go with individual liberty, but we kind of said, you know, guardians of the Constitution, politics,
Politically.
economics. Yeah, it probably goes with the idea of increasing political democracy, like Jackson being the champion of the common man. Because one of the things they reference in there is to use every constitutional means to reform the abuses of such a government and to provide new guards for the future security. They're talking about using government to help prevent abuse and to help the people. But what are some other quotes that kind of support the idea that everybody should have a say in government and that everybody should be involved? What other quotes might you take out of that document?
You could take the very first one, maybe.
Right, but I mean that's going to be, I mean that's pretty much Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. I mean I guess you could take that and then use it to support the idea that the ordinary working man back then is still striving to achieve what Jefferson envisioned. I mean, they don't have those rights yet. But one of the other things is too, like, Jackson is against the idea of like the elites. He doesn't like, the idea that people are going to be put down or people are not going to be able to get that equality of opportunity or be involved in government. And they should, according to like the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So government has to protect and has to promote the idea of democracy among the lower classes. In Jackson's view, the common man. Document B, Andrew Jackson's veto message, 1832. This is in reference to Jackson's veto of the bank's recharter. The bank was set to expire in 1836, but they're going to push the issue up to the election of 1832 to make it a political issue for Jackson. And so Jackson is going to veto the bank. So look through document B, think about which main point you think it goes with, and then look for a quote that you would use to support your point, that Jackson was a guardian of the economy, or that Jackson worked for the common man to improve the economy. All right, so document B, what main point do you think document B is going to go with?
The economy.
It's going to go with the economy, and it's going to go in the section about the bank. So the Bank of the United States, or as I call it, the bus, Jackson is taking it on. He doesn't believe the bank is a benefit to the ordinary common man. Jackson believes that it actually hurts the common man. That's one of the things they're asking you to assess in this essay, is are Jacksonian Democrats looking out for the common man? What quote in there shows that Jackson might be looking out for the common man, or Jackson is trying to justify his veto of the bank?
The first sentence, he talks about justice, policy, and the Constitution.
Okay, he talks about the bank has an exclusive privilege of banking, about a monopoly of foreign and domestic exchange, so they've got a lock on everything they control. But what's another quote that might go there to help explain Jackson's dislike?
Maybe the second one, because it talks about how like foreigners and like the rich class own everything, so not like the common man owns a good amount of it.
Yeah, it's being used for the elites, and Jackson's saying a fourth part of the stock is held by foreigners and a couple hundred citizens, and mostly the richest class. So Jackson's argument is that the bank is a tool of the elite, and that it's being used in a way that is unconstitutional, and it's not benefiting the American people. It's not benefiting the common man. It's benefiting the wealthy, and it's benefiting the class that doesn't really need an advantage. What other things to stand out to you?
The last sentence.
Okay, is to be regretted that the rich and powerful too often bend the axe of government to their selfish purposes. This is how Jackson is going to justify his veto of the bank's charter, in saying that it hurts the common man. It doesn't promote equality of outcome. It's not an asset like it was intended to be, and therefore, it needs to be eliminated. So he believes the bank is unconstitutional. Now, downside of that is what replaces the bank?
Nothing.
The Treasury. They end up going with what they call wildcat banks, or pet banks, where within states there are different banks, and these banks do not work together. They're each independent, and Jackson will start pulling federal funding from the national bank and putting the money, putting those deposits into these state and pet banks. Well, those banks with federal money